Yes, guys, welcome back to We Are Tottenham TV. And it's the annual day of the week where we make Arsenal fans cry. It is your Champions League pump up, and Tottenham are back in action in the Champions League. So cancel your Coronation Street, Emmerdale, whatever it is soap you like to watch, because I know everybody has one that they like to keep an eye on. So cancel that. Tottenham are back in the big time, and we travel away to Lisbon, where hopefully after we beat them tonight, we will be celebrating with some famous Portuguese custard tarts with the boys out there after. Ben and Sid are out there as well, which is absolutely brilliant. But guys, we'll be doing this pre-match build-up. Of course, runs the same as always. We'll be bringing you to the live watch-along. I believe Bob Spurs in studio, and he'll be taking you all the way through to the post-match fan show. And of course, we are joined by Sean Butler from Spurs Talk Show. So if you're enjoying what Sean brings to the panel, get over there and smash that subscribe button. But look, Shawnee, let's get into it. I mean, you know, big game today. How are you feeling about it? You hungry? Hungry for 3 points, lad?
Mate, I've got my lucky socks on. I've got my lucky underwear on. I've just changed I've got my lucky top on. I've got the lucky hat on. I'm even using my lucky new microphone. I've maxed out my luck points for tonight's game. I need us to get 3 points. I want us to get 9 from 9 in the Champions League before we break for the World Cup for the international break. Actually, the third game's just after the international break, isn't it? I'm talking nonsense. But essentially, mate, I want us to have a massive performance tonight to get the 3 points in, and I couldn't be happier to get the pump-up show going with you.
Oh, man, it's what it's all about. I mean, look, you know, these Champions League nights, the only thing, it's so exciting. I'm almost worn out by the time kickoff comes around because it's still exciting. But look, this is the moments we live for as Spurs fans. These are the moments we've been pining for over the last couple of years when we've been in Europa League, Europa Conference League. And today I am feeling very, very confident. I'm just going to give you guys some quick team news and everything else you need to know. And then we're going to crack into it about tonight's game. But of course, you know, I'm now going to become Eric Dyer. I'm now going to become bilingual, which now classifies me as being a leader in that backline. We are away at the Estadio José Avelade. So there you go, a bit of Portuguese for me. Kickoff is at 5:45 p.m. Referee is Srdjan Jovanovic from Serbia. Hopefully he's going to let this go a bit more than what that referee from Slovenia did last week. I mean, that was absolutely outrageous, some of his referee decisions. Honestly, the guy must have thought he was refereeing around the golf or basketball, something non-contact. You know, as soon as he sent off Chancellor Mbembe, all of a sudden he's calling all these decisions to try and make back up for it. It's absolutely ridiculous. He was just happy to be in the limelight. But you know, Paratici and Conte have drafted in their long-lost cousin, Paolo Valeri from Italy, into the VAR room. So hopefully we get some justice in there today. And guys, for the injury news, of course, Lucas Moura is out with inflammation in his tendon, absent from training yesterday, and Conte also confirmed he is not available today. While Sporting Lisbon have a number of issues in defence. Jeremiah St. Juste is absent, and Gonçalo Inácio and Luis Neto are also doubts after limping off in the 4-0 victory over Portimonense over the weekend. And Giovanni Cabral and Daniel Braganca are also injured. So Sporting do come into here with a few injuries. But Sean, I mean, what are you expecting from this Sporting team tonight? Do you think they're going to give us a tougher game than what Marseille did?
I think it's going to be a much different game, my man. I think that, you know, having done a lot of research on Sporting over the last week or the last few days, you know, I think it's going to be more of a chess game. I think Marseille, I called the tactics of Marseille right on this show last week. I said that it was going to be, they were high press, super high press, super high energy. And that I thought that Tottenham would need to kind of sustain it in the first 30 minutes. And after that, Tottenham would get the upper hand in the game. I think today it's a completely different affair. You're going to see Marseille play a similar formation to what we play or to how Marseille set up, a 3-4-2-1. But I do think that the game's going to be different. You know, Sporting a very high possession. They like to sit back. They absolutely love to compress the life out of the midfield. They've got a couple of very difficult, very old school number sixes that we're going to talk about, I guess, in Ugarte and Morita in the midfield. I do think, though, that the absence of some of those players, Saint Just, and if Inacio's out as well, I do think they might be a little bit more susceptible at the back. But because of those absences, I do think that Sporting are probably going to sit even more back and just try and drain the life out of the game and then break when they can, because they do have some exciting players up front. which I know we're going to talk about. So I think it's going to be a real chess game today. I think it could be a low-scoring affair, and I hope not, but I think it could be a bit of a boring game if Tottenham decide to play the same sort of tactics. And it's going to be a difficult one to break down for me.
Do you know what, Sean? I nearly fucking fell asleep last week. Hopefully this game is a bit more entertaining and a bit more exciting. But look, what I will say is Sporting, like I agree with you. I think Sporting will set up similar formation, 3-4-2-1. It'll be a similar formation to what Marseille set up against us. They will look to pack that midfield and they will look to sit deep. Now, where trouble comes into it for me is if they get us on the quick counter. They're going to try and play a very, very similar game to the way we even play, where we sit back in shape, look to take the ball and counter. So I agree. I think it will be a bit of a duel. But for me, I think we found a blueprint against Marseille, one that we can follow, with teams that like to block up that midfield, that like to sit deep, which is get the ball out wide. Get it out wide, get crosses into the box, and get Richarlison and Kane attacking it. It's something that we didn't do last season. We came unstuck against the likes of Brentford, Brighton, and teams like that played that similar way against us. So you'd even say Burnley. But this season, I do think with the added benefit of Perisic, we can get down that wing. We can get good balls into the crosses, because if they're going to block up the midfield, no point in trying to play through them. You play around them, get the balls out wide, and get good deliveries into the box. So, and if they've got a few defenders out like we're expecting, I think that would play into Spurs' hand. And for me, that's the way I would start the game, Sean. I would get at them by looking to get the ball out wide and get it into the box at every opportunity. What I want us to do, though, is I do want us to be a bit more patient going forward, like we were in the second half against Marseille compared to where we were in the first half. In the first half, we tried to do a lot of intricate play, a lot of 1-2s, flicked around the corners, etc., and it just didn't come off. I think we looked probably a bit over-eager to impress. But in the second half, even before the sending off, we were a bit calmer on the ball, looking to get more bodies forward, a bit more, taking a bit more time with how we were trying to open up the gaps and get balls into areas to play. So for me, I think there's definitely a blueprint from that Marseille game, to play against Sporting tonight.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think that Marseille play a different style, right? Marseille are very much the sort of team that are going to cut. Like, they came after us. That they're kind of, you could almost say, like organized headless chickens running around, 2-3 men on the ball, or trying to chase the ball down. And it's a team that gets exhausted quickly. I think we had to be patient. Unless you've got two options when you play against a team like Marseille. One of them is if you have the ability technically, is to play around them, and when there's naturally going to be players that pulled out of position when they're doing that high press in midfield, then if you're good enough technically, you can play it around them. I don't think Tottenham currently or at the moment have that kind of in their skill set. So we had to sustain them. And a lot of the Spurs fans came away feeling frustrated with the performance, especially in the first half, even though I think it was probably very well executed. It was a professional performance that had to suck up that pressure, wait until they got tired. I think today is going to be another example where I think if it plays out the way I see it playing out, Dave, I think that it'll be another game where afterwards, whether we get the win or, if it's a 1-0, win, like I kind of think it might be, I think you might again see some of the fans thinking it's Tottenham struggling to get going. It's going to be a frustrating affair, because I think that we've seen that kind of blueprint played against us before this season. We've seen it a lot last season, where teams are very happy for us to have the ball at the back. They're very happy for us to pass it around and then say, come on, then you have to try and break it through us or break us down. And I think, Sporting are going to be very patient in that regard. And, Tottenham are going to have to find the way. I think it's important. We're going to find out, obviously, that the starting 11, I think it's important that we have ball-playing players at the back. I think it's necessary to have Longley in the team. Romero obviously needs to be able to make use of his skill set with the ball at his feet. The one thing I would say, mate, is, looking into what Amorim's kind of his kind of raison d'etre is with Sporting, is he's very happy to clog the midfield. He keeps things simple, right? He keeps things simple, doesn't want to overcomplicate the tactics. And he likes to force, I was saying this to you backstage, in my opinion, he likes to force opposition teams to use the width. Very similar to what happened, if you remember Brighton last season when we lost 1-0 at home. Graham Potter set up the team. It wasn't the high press, it wasn't the low block, it was a squeezed midfield where the entire game was essentially played around the centre circle. Everybody was inside of 20 meters of the pitch. And Graham Potter said, if you want to break us down, you're going to have to go down the wide areas. And he thought, and he was right to think it, that Cucurella and Lamptey were going to be better than Emerson and Sessegnon. And on the day, he was right. And I feel like Sporting's setup is similar to that. He believes that in the Portuguese league, that his players, Pedro Porro, and the fella on the left, there's a few different players that could be on the left tonight, but whoever it is, that he generally thinks that those players down their width are better than the players that he plays against in the Portuguese league. Now, against Tottenham, I don't know if he's going to have the same success, but I completely agree with you in principle that we are going to need to rely on our wide players. We are going to need, I hope we see Perisic in the team rather than Sessegnon, and I hope we see a better, another improved performance from Emerson, because I think we're going to rely on those guys to be able to create opportunities for us in the game.
No, I completely agree. I think where we will get most of our joy is out wide. And I'd say, look, Emerson, I take the point. You know, most people will probably back themselves up against the guy because he does sort of shit his pants when he gets up into that final third. And since Kulu's come out of the team, you know, he looks out of ideas, because with Kulu, we were compensating for it. We're getting him to drop back so Emerson could pass it back and let him cross it in. But with Richarlison, that option doesn't seem to be there. So I think we will be relying on more so Perisic getting down that side. He also has 3 assists to his name. And so we know he can put in great balls. So for me, he's the one I'd be looking at, trying to get the ball out to at every single opportunity. Because I actually thought he had a poor game against Marseille. Especially the second half, every time he touched the ball up until the assist, he lost it or gave it away. But at the end of the day, his quality shone through, and he got a quality crossing, which ultimately ended up opening up the game for us. So I can definitely see that today. But I'm glad we found that blueprint against Marseille, and it's something that we can definitely employ today. Moondog says, come on, you Spurs, 3-0 to us, no problem, keep calm. I agree. Look, I'll be honest. I said this when the group was drawn. I said, look, being honest, I think it's an easy group. A lot of people said to me, Dave, there's no such thing as easy in football. But there is. If you're good enough, there is such thing as easy in football. And look, for me, I think we should come out with maximum points in this group. I think the only difficult place we'll find going away is Marseille away. But I actually think we'll beat Sporting tonight, and I think we'll beat them convincingly. I think it's a night where our front three need to click, because right now, our biggest frustration, I think, as Spurs fans, is the performances, which I will touch on. I want to get to a bit the rotation first before the lineups come out, but I will touch on performances after. But I can get where Spurs fans' frustration is coming from, but I don't think they've been as bad as many people are saying. I think the performances have more been a reflection on the front three not clicking as a unit yet.
100%.
More than anything. But look, Sean, we'll talk about rotation before we get into talk of performances, because the lineups will be out in about 11 minutes' time. So, I mean, Conte said words yesterday, Sean, basically, and he was saying, what was it that he was saying? Basically that because the City game didn't go ahead, you know, he won't have to, or what's the correct word? That with the Sporting Lisbon lineup, he could put out a different lineup than what maybe he expected for or planned for with the City game. In your opinion, does that mean he's going to rotate, or does that mean he's going to stick with the same 11 that was put out there against Marseille?
Yeah, I think I saw it the same way that some people. I think initially people thought that meant that. Initially, I think people thought that meant that there'd be rotation. I think when you actually look into what he's saying, I think it means there's less likely to be rotation. I think he probably would have rotated players out had we had the first 11. Or whatever he just deems to be the first team playing against Manchester City. But I think that, and so now that hasn't happened, he's allowed to play whichever 11 he deems necessary. But I think that some of the players that would be on the rotation conversation anyway would have been naturally rotated in. Like, I think Sessegnon would have been a better fit for the Manchester City game anyway, because he's defensively more, you know, solid. He likes to put some of the better players on the right wings of the top four, top three teams in his pocket, like he did last season. And I think that against a team like Sporting, for the reasons we've all just gone through, you're going to need to see Perisic anyway. So I think that the natural rotation would have been to have Sessegnon play against City and to put Perisic in today. On the fact that he's now saying I don't have to rotate, it could also be a little bit of mind games in telling both players it doesn't matter, right? Like, because you both, like, in saying he doesn't need to rotate, but playing Perisic, it might have been a way for saying to Perisic that you could have played anyway against Manchester City, even though I don't think he would have done. In terms of other areas for rotation, obviously we're going to probably talk about the front three in a second, but the other natural one would be whether it's Longley or Dyer. In my preview show, I actually put Dyer in, Davies. I actually put Davies into the team purely because I do think that Sporting have some very tricky players up front in Marcus Edwards, who on today will probably be, if you see on the starting 11, he'll look like he's playing as a number 9 in the striker role, but actually he's more familiar playing as a kind of right wing forward. But you're going to have Trincao on the right hand side as well, another very tricky player. So if Edwards is going to naturally drift into one position, he's going to drift down our left. Same with Trincao. And so on that basis, I actually thought that Ben Davies would have been a slightly better choice to kind of manage the defensive options. That said, obviously now, when you think about it from a Tottenham's perspective, I actually think that Longley is going to be so much more important, because we're going to have some far better delivery if we're going to have a lot of possession, and that Sporting are going to allow us to have a lot of play, a lot of time on the ball from the back three. You're going to need people in the back three that can put the ball where it needs to be put. And Longley for me is a sure starter ahead of Ben Davies on that basis.
I'm glad you said that, Sean, because I'm not in a mood to disagree with Spurs fans today. Not Champions League day. Look, for me, I agree. I think, Lenglet has to play. I think, as good as a season Ben Davies had last season, and yes, he's much improved, but he had so much more scope to prove than anybody else. For me, I think there's night and day difference between Lenglet and what Ben Davies offers. Some people would say, look, it's an away game. You're going to need a player that's going to throw his body on the line. He's going to make blocks, this, that, and the other, and he's going to be reliable defensively.
Yeah.
But what I would caveat that with, and actually Jack made this point, it was a good point. You also have to remember, this is a guy that made a complaint about the atmosphere after we, got bet by Vitesse, blamed the atmosphere, the pitch, etc., etc. So if you can't be trusted in the Europa Conference League away day, I definitely don't trust him in the Champions League away day. But not only that, it takes away from the way we play. If we had Ben Davies, Dyer, and say Romero, Sporting have what would you call an unconventional front three. They don't play with a number 9. They're going to have players that are good on the ball, technically sound, really good at dribbling, and direct with their dribbling. Yeah. They would eat Davies alive if they went on the outside of him. Marcus Edwards would eat him alive. If all you have to do is go on the outside of Davies and you've skinned them. So for me, I'd much rather Langley in there. But as well, with having Langley
I'm not sure Longley is going to be any better defensively against that. I think, from my research on Clement Long, we haven't seen too much of Longley, but when I did those stat reviews of Longley in the summer, the two areas that he was very poor on was getting, conceding dribbles against and aerially. He was his aerial duels was 42%.
From the two games I've seen him, I think he's looked solid enough defensively. I don't think he's really done too much wrong. But the biggest thing is about us having the ball. Having Romero and Langley on one side, we keep possession, which alleviates the pressure on the back line, alleviates the pressure on the midfield, and it stops us fans going absolutely ballistic about them every single game. So in that case, I would bring Langley in. Plus, he's got a lot more Champions League experience. Perisic, on the other hand, again, I would keep in. I think it's crucial he plays. If Ryan Sessegnon is one side and Emerson is the other, I struggle to see where the creativity or the good crosses are going to come in from the box. I think Dyer and Romero, Dyer will start anyway. It's his homecoming, made 27 appearances for Sporting Lisbon. Romero will be kept in. Midfield, I think, will remain the same, Shawnee, but it's the forward line where, there's a lot of talk about it. Look, I think the two of us will both agree. You've got to keep Richarlison in. He's undroppable right now. 2 goals, 2 headers, crying with joy, sharing the moment with his father after the game the last week, essentially won us the 3 points. So for me, I think he's got to keep his place. I think Harry Kane keeps his place. Again, it's question marks over Sunshine today. And Kulusevski came on, although it was for Emerson at right wing back. He changed the game for Tottenham. He gave us more going forward. So what would you do tonight, Sean? Do you think Conte sticks with Son, or do you think Kulusevski will come in? And how do you think Kulusevski is handling being dropped right now? Because he hasn't done anything wrong.
He hasn't done anything wrong, but I don't think, I'm going to call a spade a spade. He hasn't started this season with the same, impact, the same impetus. He's a class player, but if we're comparing apples to apples, last season versus this season, he doesn't quite have the same zip. That said, of the 4 striker sort of forward options, for me, Sonny is obviously by far the most underperforming relative to what we expect. I do think that Sonny's getting better. For me, I think that there's a lot of things that excuse or explain Sonny's his lackluster performances. I do think in the past few games, there's been so much push down our left-hand side with Perisic, Ben Davies and or Longley. Their average positions, I've said this before 100 times now, it's a very distorted 3-4-3 where you see too much of the emphasis going down the left-hand side for Tottenham, which naturally pushes, Ben Davies, I think in the 3-4 games that he played this season, his average position was inside the opposition half. Perisic was an extra 25 yards further forward, or Sessegnon, take your pick, whoever the left wing back was. And that naturally pushes Sonny inside. It also means that the opposition get drawn into that area. And Sonny is not as good crowded as he is when he's got room to maneuver. That equals struggling performances, equals compounding on his confidence, equals maybe selfishness and poor decision making, when to pass, when to shoot. And when he's running with the ball against Marseille, when he finally got that chance in the second half to have the pace and the space to run into, then he dribbled, two steps too far, and the ball ended up getting pinched off his feet. This is not the Sonny we're seeing. So, roundabout way of saying this, whilst I don't think that Decky is, hitting on all cylinders or firing on all cylinders either, Dave, I think that at some point you have to try the 3-ball that we haven't yet seen start a game, which is Kane, Decky, and Richarlison. And it has to happen, in my opinion, either tonight or Leicester. One of these two games. For me, I don't mind. I would like to see Decky, Richarlison, and Kane, and let's see what happens, right? And if not, and if we try it tonight and it doesn't work, or doesn't gel, then bring Sonny back in against the Leicester team, which I think we can put 5 or 6 goals past on the weekend, and Sonny can get a slice of that, and that can set everything back in motion. But for me, I think if we are going to do this rotation, I think there's got to be a time when we see the other 3 played together. I think tonight should be the night, and then whatever happens, maybe you bring Sonny back in against Leicester and let him get a couple of goals, and then everything can change for his mindset.
Well, Sean, let me give you the starting lineup and let's get your reaction. And then I also want to have a quick chat on some, because I've also said this. I was listening to you on one of the channels there the other day, and you were talking about Son and he's running in behind. And I've also made that point, so I do want to get into that a little. But the lineup is out. It's out early, actually. Lloris,
I've got the screen there. If you want to bring it up, we can see it together. It's amazing. I just saying what I've just said, and the team's out, and it's nothing like what I said.
It sounded beautiful, no, Sean. It sounded beautiful. But guys, we have got Hugo Lloris in goals, captain. We've got the King, Emerson Royal at right wing back, along with Romero, the General, Dyer Moonboots, and Ben Davies starting across the back three. Bit disappointed that Langley has moved out personally. Perry Perisic, the Mr. Hot Sauce, is at left wing back, with Ben Tekers and Pierre-Emile Salzburg in the midfield, with Slick Rick, Son Aldo, and the best striker in world football, Harry Kane, forming the front three. In goals, you've got Fraser Forrester. On the bench, you've got Fraser Forrester, Matt Doherty, Jedi Spence makes the bench tonight. We've got Tanganga, Sanchez, Langley, Sessegnon, Skip, Harvey White, Basuma, Brian Gil-Messi, and Kulu Sexy on the bench. So there is your lineup, guys. Sean, Davies over Langley. What do you think the thinking is behind that?
Well, as I mentioned, mate, this is the team that I put out in my preview show yesterday, and I do understand the idea behind Davies to a degree. I do think, I know you don't agree with me, but I do think that Davies does offer a bit more protection than Longley defensively. I also worry a little bit about the centre back, the ex-Liverpool and Sunderland player Koatesh. He's the Uruguayan captain. He's a beast in the air, and when you've got Pedro Porro who can whip the balls in from set pieces, I do worry about us, maybe conceding. If we give away too many goals in danger, too many free kicks in dangerous positions, and I do think that Ben Davies is better in the air defensively than Longley is as well. So it makes sense from a defensive setup. I don't think it makes sense from an attacking option, because I do think, like we've spoken about, I do think that having Longley in the team, you've got a far higher likelihood of the ball finding its destination if it's Longley that's kicking it long rather than if it's Davies. I'm okay with it. There is an argument. It does make sense to me on some level, defensively at least.
Do you know what? I disagree, lad. I'm not. It just does not fill me with confidence. I think Langley is far superior in all-round aspect, if I'm being brutally honest. And for me, look, even if it is from a set-piece point of view, Ben Davies isn't exactly the biggest man either. And as well, when he's making excuses about the atmosphere against Vitesse away, I don't think he's going to last too long in Portugal tonight, if I'm being brutally honest. So that one does not fill me with confidence whatsoever. I actually think Ben Davies has been a mile off the pace he set last season as well. So he better come in and put in a decent performance tonight, and on the ball. He knows what he needs to do on the ball now. So I want to see him maneuver that ball a bit better. I want to see him be braver. I don't want to see this crap of him turning inside every single time he gets the ball. and gives it back to Dyer. Open up your body and give it to Perisic. When we had Langley there, we were trying to find Perisic in behind as often as we can. If it wasn't Perisic, it was Son. Ben Davies can't do that, and I'm just afraid that left side might be a little bit unbalanced, and we might struggle to get Perisic into the game.
On the same time, though, mate, when you've got Perisic that we know is going to be so important for us going forward, like I genuinely disagree with you that if you think that Longley is as capable or as sound or better than Davies defensively, I don't agree with that at all. And I think that it's the same argument that I've been trying to make around the balance on the right-hand side. When we had Sanchez and we had Emerson, we had two players that are very good defensively, that don't concede goals very often at all. But the consequences of the impact of having those two players there is that you don't have any real threat going forward on the right-hand side. So we had that natural shift, that contortion, where we had to put everything down the left-hand side. And went like you saw against West Ham, for example, when we had, I think it was Longley and it was Perisic on the left. When we lost the ball, West Ham smashed it down the right-hand side. 7, 8, 9 out of 10 times that West Ham attacked us, they attacked us down our right because Perisic was caught out of position, being too far up the field. And Longley was also alongside him. And I think that for me, and I think you could argue the same thing happened with Chelsea as well. I think for me, it makes sense if you're going to have someone who's going to be as offensive as Perisic, then it makes sense to have somebody next to him who can step back a little bit and not necessarily play. Because I think that Sporting are going to dominate down the right hand. They're right down our left. They're going to approach down there, whether it's through Trincao or whether it's through Marcus Edwards as well, just stepping back and receiving the ball in that kind of dynamic, fluid front three that they have. So I feel more reassured that we have Ben Davies there than Longley from a defensive point of view.
Yeah. Do you know what? If you would have said last season Ben Davies, I would have said fair enough. But this season, I think, again, he's been exposed down that left-hand side when he has played. I think he's given away a lot of sloppy free kicks. Teams are finding it very, outpacing him. So I have my concerns. I just want to say one thing, though. Philip says he's just hating on Davies for no reason. I mean, I'm not. Everything I said was factual. He's not great on the ball. He did come out and make an excuse about the atmosphere and everything else after the Vitesse game last season. So I wouldn't say it's for no reason. I'd say I have some sort of justified reason to do it. I don't just look at a player and say, oh, I don't like the look of you, I'm going to hate on you. I have genuine reasons for it. And he says, bro has a personal agenda. I wouldn't say an agenda. I would say I have an opinion. Just because you don't agree with it, it doesn't mean it's there an agenda. But I'd have an opinion, so you can suck it up and like it, because I'm here whether you like it or not. What I would say, I want to get back into Sonny, Sean.
Yeah.
I actually agree with Son. I think, look, with Langley pushing with Perisic pushing forward, I think it's taken up a lot of the space that he's had to operate in.
Yeah.
I think last season, especially if you look at a lot of his goals, it all came from Harry Kane dropping in, picking up the ball, and him running in behind. I think them roles have sort of reversed this season. Where they're looking at Son to pick up the ball and keep Harry Kane up top to be the finisher. And the reason why I say you see the best of Sonny running behind, even against Marseille, the best we saw of Sonny was running in behind. Yeah. Picking up Chancellor and Bemba, the red card. There was another one where Langley played it in behind and Sonny got on the end of it. Yeah. But when he's coming to receive the ball, physically, he's being out-muscled, but he's also not giving him the best chance to win that ball, because he's not getting his body in front of the defender, or in front of the guy that's on him. He's beside him, and he's always going to lose that physical battle. What he needs to do, especially when he's calling for the ball, get in front of the defender, widen out your body, and hold him off, and get that touch, and get turned. But look, with Son, for me,
that's going to be a problem today, by the way, Dave. Right? The midfield two of Ugarte and Morita, they are very there's quite a lot of technical talent in there, but more than that, they love a crunching challenge, right? And I think that you're going to see a couple of yellow cards, and I do wonder if Sonny does come deep to receive the ball, or if Sonny just goes wandering, trying to find the ball because he sees how compressed his usual left side, up the front third is crowded out. I do worry how he's going to do if he receives the ball back to goal and you've got Marissa coming in behind him or Ugarte's coming in behind him. I don't know if he's strong enough. Harry Kane, I think can handle that, right? He can use his body weight. Certainly Decky could. That's another reason why I'm a little bit surprised that Decky's not in there. You're going to need strength in there today when we do receive the ball. Richarlison, I think we'll wait and see on that one. But For me, I do think there could be a problem with us getting out muscled today as well with the way that they play in the midfield and the way that they like to not just compress the game but actually go in quite physical with those two specifically, Marita and Ugarte.
Interesting, you actually you say that, Shawnee, because I was actually looking at it. Tottenham actually have the taller team, and we're more physical than them. So the physical battle will be interesting, very interesting. But I just hope we're allowed to see a physical battle, Sean. I just don't want the referee blowing it up every 2 minutes, because he's trying to get on the BT Sport cameras, and give his wife a shout out and everything else. Absolutely ridiculous. Honestly, the guy must have thought he was refereeing basketball. It was a joke, it's the way he the way he officiated that game. Honestly, it was like he was told it
in the second half. In the first half, I thought he let the game flow a little bit, but in the second half, after the red card, he suddenly just changed his mind and thought he'd blow up for everything. And it was very strange. It was strange because in the first, I actually was like, "Oh, this is going to be an interesting game." He's letting the game flow a little bit, but then as soon as that red card happened, his entire approach to the game changed, and it spoiled the rest of the affair. If I'm honest, yeah.
Yeah, I think he just liked the feel of the whistle between his lips, if I'm being honest. It was absolutely ridiculous. But Sean, let's get into talking about Tottenham's performances of late. Look, a lot of fans are not convinced by the performances, and we haven't really been putting in a convincing performance since Southampton. What's your general thoughts on our performances over the last while?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree. I think that we can do better, right? I think everyone admits that we're not clicking in certain areas of the pitch. I think the decision making of the front three has been pretty poor. We touched on it a little bit of why maybe Sonny's out of sync, but I also think that there's something happening between the chemistry between Sonny and Kane. I'm not suggesting there's a rift or anything, but I just think maybe the fact that Sonny's not in the natural position he usually is, he's not entirely sure or familiar with what to do. But I generally think that we have created a lot of opportunities. I think we've been really solid at the back. And I think as a fan base, Tottenham are a little bit guilty of not paying enough credit or respect to the setups, the tactics that have been employed by the opposition. I think West Ham, I think David Moyes set his team up incredibly well to take advantage. I think he understood that Tottenham would play down the left and he would wait and counter down their right. And I think there was a lot of Tottenham. I don't think we necessarily acknowledge the strengths of what West Ham do, especially in the London derby. I think Thomas Tuchel, I know he's gone now, but I think as a tactician, I didn't have that much confidence in him. But, I think that in that particular game, I thought he was set up very astutely to take advantage of Tottenham's style of play. I think that Tottenham are playing in a way right now where we're not quite getting out of second gear, yet we're getting the results. And for me, I think that we should pay a little bit more consideration to the way that other teams are setting up. And I think that we're getting the job done. The only thing I think we need to click with is really the front three need to get a little bit more familiar. And it takes time, right? You've got another man in the team who's like in Richarlison. When you've got those three players that last season, Decky, Sonny, and Kane were so important. They were the entire keystone in our operation, how they gelled together. Decky obviously came in and really bonded so well with Doherty, which he hasn't really faced any minutes or very few minutes this season. So there's a lot of disruption to the continuity of how we operated last season. I think that as time goes on and as the chemistry starts to build, we are going to click and we are going to double down and get into third gear and go and smash teams 4-5. I think you're going to see the first example of that. Not tonight. I think you're going to see it against Leicester. I think tonight will be a tough one. But for me, I think that I'm not as frustrated or as concerned about it as a lot of the fans are, Dave. For me, I think that I like to look at zoom out a little bit, not just look at Tottenham through a microscope and look at the other variables and the other kind of context. And I think that there's no easy games in the Premier League anymore. We've played some really hard. We've had one of the toughest opening fixtures of any team, and we've got through it, without necessarily dazzling, but we're getting it done. And as soon as the front three figure each other out and get back into their sort of romantic poetry, then I think that we'll see that everything else will click as well.
Do you know what, Sean? I think that's a very, very fair assessment of the way we've played. Look, for me, I think we set up solidly so that we don't concede goals. And by not conceding goals, you always give yourself a chance of going on to win the game. And at the minute, we're relying on maybe bits of individual brilliance to maybe go and win us a game. But I think once that front three clicks, I do think you'll see a much more improved Tottenham. I mean, last season when we clicked, there was a period of 4, 5, 6 games where we clicked, and we were absolutely
Yeah.
demolishing teams. What I will say is, when we did have these periods last season where we weren't playing well, because we did have periods of it, we did not have the answers to go and win the games.
Yeah.
But right now, we have the answers to go and win them games. We have the solutions. So even though we're not playing well, we're still winning games. We've got to remember, we've won 4 out of our last 5, and we're unbeaten this season.
Yeah.
We're unbeaten. 7 going into 7 games in now. You know,
if you were to listen to some areas of the fan base, you know, this is not me criticizing. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, but if you were to listen to some areas, if you'd like woken up out of a coma or something and just said, before I looked at the league table, before I was seeing the form, did we just listen to some areas? Like you'd think we were in a relegation battle. Like it's odd how some people perceive what we're doing as such an issue and such a problem. For me, I think there's so many more reasons to be optimistic and positive than there are reasons to be fearful. For me, I mean, yeah.
I agree, but we have to understand the tactics, though, Sean. Like, the reason why we sit back in shape and we don't go and press is because Conte doesn't trust that back line to be exposed like a Man City or a Liverpool do. So we found a nice cohesive unit shape where we all sit back in, everyone works hard from side to side, and we keep it tight, which then gives us the springboard to counter-attack them. Now, I do think over the course of the season, you will see us gain a lot more possession. But what has let us down? You go back to the Chelsea game, could not string passes together. You go back to the West Ham game, for all the possession we had, created very little. You go back to the Forest game, you know, so frustrating going forward in breakaway moments, sloppy passes given away.
Yep.
You go back to Marseille last week. If in the first half, if we would have just put 3, 4 balls straight in behind, we would have had that game over by half time. There was so much space for them to go into, but we didn't. We tried to play it through intricate passes. And again, when it got to Richarlison, Kane, Orson, they're all guilty in the first half.
Yeah, 100%.
It was given away. But once that clicks, we're going to have a team that is solid defensively by the way we're set up, and we're going to just blow teams away. I can feel it coming. And with Liverpool and Chelsea, you know, having their issues, we can definitely clinch second. And if you're in second, that puts you in a title race. But we are playing football right now that is making us win games. And that's all I care about. Look,
pragmatic, right? We're playing pragmatic football, professional football. It's not always pretty, but it gets the job done.
We're playing football that suits our squad, basically, is what we're doing. Like, look, under Pochettino, we had 2 of the best fullbacks in world football, 2 of the best centre-backs, best centre midfielders. We had the best in class from 1 to 11. But what did that sexy football get us? We got to semi-finals, we got to finals, we got to close in the leagues. Never got us over the line. But Conte's way is getting us over the line. And I guarantee you it will get us to a quarters, to a semi, or even a final this season playing the way we're playing. I get the reservations over the performances. Would I like to see us play better? Of course I would. Do I get bored at times watching us? Of course I do right now. But once that front 3 clicks, we're going to be sitting there, you know, absolutely praising it. We're going to be absolutely flying. So for me, I have no worries about it. If you're not playing the most convincing and you're still winning games, imagine what you're going to be like when you're winning.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, mate. I genuinely do think that the frustration, like, I don't know how many times in a game people, like, how many opportunities people would want us to create. Like, forget about goals scored, right, or chances, but opportunities. You know, an opportunity could be something where there's a chance for it to become a chance, right? But for me, I think we've got, like, you know, in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 games, we've created more than a dozen good opportunities during the game, right? One every sort of 3 or 4 minutes of possession. And it's been poor decision-making on individuals' parts that has let that thing not become a chance. And, like, if that's, I don't know what it is that people are looking for that would satisfy them. Because I think that it's far more likely that the probable cause for the frustration is down to individual bad decisions, which that's not a tactical thing. That's players not fully committing, not fully understanding, or just having a bad touch, like having an off day. It happens, right? But the fact that we're getting the results anyway, as soon as those individuals, and we know the individuals we're talking about, as soon as those individuals can iron out those creases in their game right now, for whatever reason they exist, who knows? But once that gets ironed out, I think you're going to see a Tottenham that can go and decimate teams. And I do genuinely think that the first version of that we're going to see this season is going to come on the weekend against Leicester. I think we're going to absolutely throttle them. And it's going to be a beautiful thing to see. The only concern that I have with the tactics from Conte is his reluctance to, and I understand he's a sort of man who will sit down with his team and will figure out, and they'll plan for a specific setup throughout the week, right? And then, or throughout the 3 days that they have to plan for the game, and they'll go in with that particular game plan in mind. The only thing that does concern me sometimes is the slow start and the lack of proactive change. You don't really see him adjusting tactics during the game, and it's very reactive. And I think that if you are going to have a team that's not really firing yet, I would like to see just a couple of times. I would like to see Conte be a little bit more proactive, like kind of peak Mourinho, where when things weren't working, doesn't matter. Okay, let's just get one. Let's change something quickly in the first half. But Conte seems to want to wait until halftime to then give them a rattle and then see what happens. And we're usually much better in the second half. But against some of the tougher teams that we haven't yet played against, we might not go into the halftime break still in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually think you're absolutely spot on. I do think that is one of the concerns I actually have as well, that they need to be stripped down at halftime before they sort of get any sort of cohesion together. That is worrying, and that's something that we do need to keep an eye on. But do you know what, Sean? I actually think we'll click tonight. I think I'm going one earlier. I think we will click tonight.
Yeah.
Against
Sporting. I hope you're right. I'm happy to lose my money, mate. I put a lot of money on us having a low-scoring game, but I'm happy to sacrifice the money if we go and
look,
trounce.
What I would say to people is maybe don't put as much on as Sean, but if you are looking for a cheeky bet, look, me and Sean both done the same research, it seems, because we're talking about this before the game, that most of the bookies are actually predicting it to be a low-scoring games, less than 2.5 goals. If you look back at Tottenham's games recently, we haven't scored more than 2, and we're not really conceding, so they are expecting it to be in under 2.5 goals. So they are expecting it to be close, but they're expecting it to be close off the back of our front three not clicking. I predict they'll click tonight. Leicester, I'm not really too worried about, if I'm being honest. I actually think them players are waiting to get Roger sacked. I think they're actually trying to get Roger sacked. But look, 100%. That's a story we'll talk about on the weekend. Brandon Troller says, want to see Kula at right wing back. He and Richie are too talented. Now, this is a call that I think you might even see happen tonight if needed, because Sean, he took off Emerson against Marseille, brought on Kulusevski. He provided a lot more going forward, and he was that good that Glenn Goddle is what I call him, but Glenn Hoddle, he was saying Kulu has to start the next game. Is there? Do you think further down the line there could be an opportunity of getting this guy in at right wing back and being supporting cast going forward?
Yeah, he strikes me as the sort of person that's willing to adapt, and he's definitely strong enough. I do see him get back when he's playing right, in the right wing forward spot. He does get back and get stuck in. I've got no doubts at all that he could do a job, and obviously we know he could do a job going forward, a right wing back. But obviously the question mark is he going to get exposed with his lack of defensive, tendencies? I think that he's somebody that would happily adapt and happily do a shift, and I think he's strong enough, and I think he's intelligent enough. He's so intelligent as a football player that I think whatever he might lack in his ability to tackle or to do those sorts of things that he hasn't grown up necessarily studying, I think his intelligence, his football IQ will put him in positions that would kind of limit the necessity for him to get caught out of position. So I'm okay with it, and I think tonight, like I say, I do think that if Sporting are gonna get the ball, and when they do move it, they'll move it down both wings. But I think you're going to see Pedro Porro and Trincao and Marcus Edwards be that's where their main talent is in the pitch, at least defensively. And so I think you're going to see it down our left. And so on that basis, if there is a chance to bring on Kulusevski, I don't think that it does make sense to do it tonight, if ever, to try it, because I don't think that Sporting are going to really push the ball down the left as much as they are the right. And so our right wing back would be a little bit more freer to receive the ball and get into the space behind when we win the ball back. So yeah, I'm up for it.
I'm just thinking there. Imagine Perisic one side, Kulusevski the other, Kane's son and Richarlison. I mean, if that doesn't get you excited, you wouldn't even get a hard on in a room full of Kardashian sisters when they're naked. Honestly, unbelievable thinking of that. That our players running forward, our 5, absolutely unbelievable. That's got to get you excited, Brandon. I think you're onto something here, my man. I really do, brother.
Big up, Brandon.
Really appreciate the support. Sean, anything else you want to talk about? Any more talking points? We've got about 10 minutes left. Anything else you think we haven't brought up or discussed?
Oh, I mean, Marcus Edwards, right? We haven't really spoken too much about him.
Marcus.
Yeah, I mean, Look, a lot of people I've seen out of no one's mentioned his name as in a Tottenham fan base for the last 2.5 years. All of a sudden, because the game's coming up, they checked out the highlights of the Frankfurt game and they see him do well on the weekend. And suddenly, it's why did we let him go? Daniel Levy's fault, whatever, right? I mean, what's your thoughts on Marcus Edwards? Do you think he's going to? I mean, he's obviously a danger man tonight. He's a very talented player, but he was injury prone when he was at Tottenham for his entire youth. He was injured every 5 minutes. Do you think he's going to be? A, do you think it was a mistake to let him go, or is that just part and parcel of youth development? And B, how much of a threat is it going to be for him? How much of a threat will he be against us this evening?
Yeah, interesting. Look, I'll have my say now. Just quickly, Simon, really appreciate that, my man. Hopefully I don't burn the ears off you or whatever else. Hopefully you enjoy it, my man. Big yourself up, Simon. Do I think it was a mistake? Look, I don't think there's anything we could have done, Sean. At the end of the day, I think the worst thing we done was when Pochettino described him as having Messi-like ability, especially with the left foot of his. And apparently he got a bit of a big head. There was a bit of attitude problems there at the end of the day. But the kid also backed himself. I think he was given one first-team opportunity in a cup game. I think it was against like Gillingham or something like that. So the opportunities wasn't there. And it's a bit like some of the other players we've seen. Marcel Lavinier this season refused to sign a new contract, backs himself to go out and play first team.
Yeah.
And Noni Madueke over there at PSV? Again, Les Spurs didn't sign a new contract because he backed himself to get first team football and there was no opportunities there. So for me, fair play to the kid for going out backing himself. I think he's made a decent enough career. It didn't take him too long. He went out to a small Portuguese team. Didn't take him too long to get the big move to Sporting. Now he's one of the most informed wingers in the Portuguese league. He absolutely destroyed Frankfurt the other day with a goal and assist. And I think him having a point to prove, to the fans, to the club as a whole, I think that makes him a very, very dangerous player tonight. Yeah. I think a player with a point to prove, and I've been there, Sean. You go in there, you're super focused. Your adrenaline is pumped. You're thinking about the game's hours beforehand. You're super focused during the game, and you do things that you normally wouldn't try to get that edge. And for me, I think that makes him a very dangerous player tonight. Added that he's now running at Ben Davies. Yeah. One thing this guy is brilliant at, Sean, is he's brilliant with his dribbling, and he's got great feet.
Yeah. I was going to say is the one thing that I worry about. The great thing about Tottenham. We'll talk about the sporting list lineup in a second. But the one great thing about Tottenham recently, Dave, is that we've restricted so many of our teams we played against to shooting from outside the area, right? And generally speaking, half of them are block shots, half of them a third of them are blocked, the other third are off target, and the final third. If you want to have a goalkeeper, I know we criticise Hugo Lloris, rightly so, for his poor distribution, but he's one of the greatest shot stoppers in Premier League history, continues to be an absolute worldie of a shot stopper from distance. And so, to me, I think traditionally, technically, the idea of making other teams resort to having shots from 25 yards is a good thing. You'd rather them shooting from there than inside the box. However, if you actually look at Sporting Lisbon's last 9 goals that they've scored, I know they scored 4 on the weekend. I know a couple of those were massive deflections, but the vast majority, or not the vast, a not insignificant amount of their goals that they score are from outside the area, right? People like Marcus Edwards doing his quick feet, finding an inch of space and then whipping it in. And when he does it, and not just him, but the same with Trincao as well. They put him into the corner. So I do think that it's going to be an interesting one today. Looking at the Sporting lineup, we talked about Inacio. He might be injured, but he's actually playing. We talked about Reyes. I think Reyes can either play as a centre back on the left or as a left wing back. So I think looking at the team, he's going to play left wing back is Reyes. So you're going to have Kovacic in goal. Kovacic in the centre of the back three with Inacio and Reyes. Yeah, so Reyes will be at the back three. You're going to have Pedro Porro on the left wing back. You'll have Santos on the right wing. Let me say it again. Pedro Porro, right wing back. Santos, left wing back. You're going to have the midfield two of Marita and Ugarte. And then you're going to have Conchalves, Trincao, and Edwards. So it is the 11 that I thought it would be. And it's going to be a tricky game, my man. It's going to be a tricky game. Yeah. I don't think they have too much on the bench that they can draw on. They have got that guy, Paulinho, who I thought was Paulinho. I was really confused yesterday when I know that Paulinho went to Fulham. And I was like, how did he's gone to Fulham, but he also played in the 4-0 game. But it's another guy called Paulinho. He's a striker. He's quick. He's pretty tricky. I think he scored quite a lot of goals in his time at Portugal.
Yeah.
So they do have a striker, an out and out number 9 that they could bring on. I think he was injured for a lot of the season so far. He's back on the bench. He scored a goal on the weekend as well. Is there anything you want to talk about on this Sporting 11, my man?
I look at their front three. They don't play with a traditional number 9, an out and out striker. They're more of these intricate free flowing sort of forwards. Very, very quick. Trincao, great dribbler, not great end product. Marcus Edwards, good dribbler, decent end product. And Goncalves as well. But with Goncalves and Trincao, they'll also have a point to prove that they're good enough for the Premier League. You got to remember, the Premier League is where every player wants to be. Goncalves was at Wolves, failed. Trincao was on loan at Wolves, failed. So they'll also have a point to prove today. Goncalves will pull a lot of the strings. But what I will say is I'll be careful with Eric Dyer tonight, because a couple of times he got caught on the halfway line and Højbjerg had to take a yellow card from him. If he loses one of them tackles against Goncalves, Trincao and Edwards, they're gone. Yeah. They're gone. They're true on goal. So that worries me slightly. It'd be very interesting to see how our back three front up against their front three, considering it's a bit different, considering they have all players that do want to take you on and do want to try and skin you and get shots off. So it'll be very, very interesting. And Nacho being back in, probably a big boost for them. But look, Shawnee, I mean, it's coming to an end. So what's coming up on your channel, and what's your score prediction, my man?
Yeah, on my channel, Spurs Talk Show, guys. We're about
60.
I'm sorry. Oh, I can hear. I'm sorry. I can hear some random voice in the background. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm about 50 away from getting to 3,000. So if anybody who is watching right now hasn't subscribed to my channel, Spurs Talk Show is where you can find me. I'd love to get to 3,000 subs pretty soon. Yeah, on the channel you get, I take my dog for a walk in a nice little picturesque countryside every day and talk about whatever the news is, get things off my chest, and I do usual stuff, watch-alongs, panel shows, breakdowns, previews, tactical analysis. I like to look into stats and show you certain players and how they I think could fit into the Tottenham system, especially as we approach the World Cup in the January window. So get over there, Spurs Talk Show on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. And my prediction, Dave, is I think it's going to be a close one. I think we're going to win 1-0, and I think Richie's going to get it.
Nice. Absolutely love that. Guys, do get over, check out Spurs Talk Show. He's been a beautiful addition to these pre-match build-ups. I think you'll all agree. Sorry, the pump-ups. I think you'll all agree. He also does a lot of research coming into them. So, that's even more reason for you to get over there and smash that subscribe button. You will get good quality content over there. And you'll also see me. It's more of myself and Sean over there if you like us as a duo. So every Thursday. So make sure you do smash that subscribe button and let's help him get to the road to 3K. Not far off it. 1-0. You said 1-0. Interesting. Yeah. With Richarlison goal, I think, look, it could very well happen. But I'm going to go different. I'm feeling good today. I'm feeling confident. I don't know why I do this to myself, but I'm going to go 4-0. I'm banking on our, I'm banking on our front three clicking. If I'm being quite honest with you, I'm banking on the front three clicking. I'm banging on Sonny coming out exploding. I'm banging on Kane hungry for a goal. First goal in the Champions League. I'm banging on Richarlison wanted to keep his place. So I do think they'll be at it tonight. So on that basis, I've gone 4-0. Maybe it could end up 3-0, but I'll go with 4. But guys, you can also find me over at the Irish Hotspur. Again, you'll see Shawnee over there quite a few times. And we're actually only about 14 away, I think, from reaching 8K. So if there's 14 of you lovely folks that haven't subscribed, if you could get over there and make my day, it'd be unbelievable. To get that done as well. So if you could get over there and subscribe, that'd be absolutely awesome. Big up, Celery Agent. I hope you're keeping well. I haven't seen you in some time, my man. Hope you're keeping well, brother. But do everybody get over there. Check out both of the channels. But look, we're going to leave it there, guys. We're going to leave you in the capable hands of Bob Spur for the watch along. We'll also be taking you through to the post-match fan show. Massive thank you to Shawnee today and for the research as well. Incredible conversation. Hopefully you guys liked it. And we'll see you all back here for the Leicester game. As always, come on,
you Spurs!
Can't say we trust.